Welcome to part 3 of the Universal Screener training about the data you will receive after you have administered the Universal Screener with your learners and the next steps you can take with the data in the RtI process. This training is again the same for 3rd through 8th grade educators, so ignore the title where it says 5th through 8th grade on this presentation. This will be the same for 3rd through 8th, no matter if you are doing E-STAR or M-STAR. After your learners have taken the assessment on the computer, it will generate several different reports and a score for each learner that you can use to make instructional decisions. So one view that you will have is the Classroom Performance Summary Report. And the assessment is scored on a scaled score that has been normed. So you will see each learner represented in the bar graph or histogram, and it will be color-coded to match these tier levels, which are indicated down here. And the tier levels tell you what band of scaled score they fall in. This is not to be confused with Tier 1, Tier 2, and Tier 3 of our RtI process. Just because a learner appears in Tier 3 according to E-STAR or M-STAR does not mean that they are automatically in that tier in your classroom or that they should be on that tier in the process. It is just a way for them to delineate the differences in scores and the different levels of instructional support that those learners may need. So don't confuse those two different tiers that we're referring to. So you can see on this report that there are 6 different levels basically. There are 3 tiers, but each one's divided into 2. So Tier 1A, Tier 1B, 2A, 2B, 3A, and 3B. The red or Tier 3B would be those students that need the most intensive instructional support, and then going all the way up to the light blue Tier 1A, which those students need the minimal support or extra instructional support. This is one view that you would get. And then another view is just a little bit more detailed where you're able to see each learner and their scale score. These are not real pieces of data. These are not real students. So you can see here that Daniel has a scale score of 159, which puts him at Tier 3B, meaning he probably is a learner that needs intensive instructional support in your classroom. And then as opposed to Tier 1B down here, this Ricky needs minimal support with a scale score of 241. Also keep in mind it is one data point, but it just gives you a starting place and a screener to kind of see where your students might fall and which ones might be at risk. Another thing that you might see is just the pyramid. It's the same colors as the report that we were just looking at, showing that most of your learners should be in that light blue or dark blue Tier 1 of minimal support, and then you'll have less learners in the orange and yellow and a very few amount of learners in the red and light red. This would be percentile rank, the first percentile all the way to the 14th percentile. This is the most intensive instructional support, but again, it does not mean that the learner should automatically be on the Tier 3 of the RtI process. They may, and they may later, but that doesn't mean put them there automatically. This breaks down the percentile ranks just a little bit so you can see a little bit more of a description of what those students might need in the classroom. So minimal support would mean they monitor their progress closely, but they may not need as much reinforcement or additional instruction, as opposed to the ones that fell between the 15th and the 39th percentile. They probably need more targeted support and individual attention to their needs, and you may need to do some more formative assessments to track their progress. And then in Tier 3, the intensive instructional support, those students need a lot of individual support and additional instructional time to help bring them up in their areas of weaknesses. So for our purposes, we are using the cutoff of the 15th percentile. So those who fall below the 15th percentile would be your learners who are at risk in your classroom. And something that we're going to use to track our data is the intervention tracking sheet. This is found, I linked it here, this is found in the Coppell Intervention Google folder. In the math folder, we're just going to do third for an example. And then if you will remember that we were in the universal screener section, and then the intervention tracking sheet. These are specific to grade levels because of some formulas inside the spreadsheet. So please make sure that you are clicking on your appropriate grade level. Otherwise, you'll be looking at the wrong scale score for the percentile cutoff rank. So we're looking at third grade as an example. You will need to download this to your computer, and you will save it to your computer. And it's also a place progress monitoring scores. So if mine will download. It opens as an Excel sheet. And there are formulas so that you will see a color code of those learners who are at risk. So again, you'll want to open it and save it to your computer. I don't think it downloaded. Let me try one more time. Here it is. Okay, it defaults to just a different page when you open it. Make sure you go down to the bottom where it says E-star screener or M-star screener, depending on your grade level. And this is where you will, once you have the scores from the assessment, you will just enter their information, and then you will record their scaled score. If it is below the 15th percentile, it will turn red. If it is above the 15th percentile, it will just stay white. So let's see. Okay, so you'll see that learner was below the 15th percentile for this fall testing window, and so their score turned red. The scaled score does change slightly for the percentile cutoff in fall, winter, and spring, and those formulas are already in here, so you should be able to see the change. So just because a learner made a score of 208 and it wasn't red in the first testing window doesn't mean it won't be red in the second testing window. So those scores, they don't change a lot, but they do change slightly for each testing window. So for this page, you'll want to do this for every student in your class. And then on the next tab, you'll see a tab Student 1, Student 2, Student 3, Student 4. There's just 4 there, but you can add more if you need. But you do not need to do this for every learner in your class. These are for those learners who are at risk and that you will be monitoring through the RtI process. So these will be connected to the progress monitoring probes and the intervention lessons that we will discuss more a little bit later in the year. But they're only for those learners who are identified as at risk. So once you've done the screener and you have those students that you're going to begin monitoring, you will want to change these tabs to have one for every student, and you'll track their progress, and it'll make a graph here, and this will be data you keep and collect to bring with you to your RTI committee meetings and may possibly upload into some tier paperwork. So that's why you want to save this to your computer in a place where you can find it and keep updating it throughout the year. And that concludes our part 3 of our universal screener training, and that's the final part. Thank you for taking time. We know that you've had a lot of training to do at the beginning of the year, so thank you for taking time to watch and listen. And please let us know if you have any further questions. We're happy to help. There's also frequently asked questions on our CISD elementary math website, and you can always go back in Schoology and watch any of these videos again. And just remember that all of the resources are in the Google folder, and then email us if you have any other questions.